What are the tools that the church gives to us as we set out on this journey of the fast? We have been given the example in the last several weeks of the publican and the Pharisee, of the prodigal son. We have heard of the last judgment, and we have been assured that fasting is the tool that we are to take. So if we bring the humility of the publican, the repentance of the prodigal son, the consciousness of judgment that we bring from the Sunday of the judgment, along with it the care for those who are least among us, and from today the tool of fasting, we are given the disciplines that we will use through the entire course of the fast. But today's commemoration cuts deeper than simply a tool set. Today we remember the expulsion of our first parents, Adam and Eve, from paradise. We remember the fall. We remember that we are bound and constrained within this broken world. And this, above all, is the tool that the church gives to us. A reminder that although we see salvation in our midst, although we taste and touch and understand how good the Lord is, that the fulfillment and the perfection of this salvation has not yet come. The tool that the church gives to us is the assurance that our eyes and minds and hearts do not deceive us. When we feel that the world is broken, when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel that everything is falling apart and nothing will be as it was, the church tells us today that we are right. Everything is falling apart. Everything is broken. Everything is doomed to death. But the church tells us too that the response to this reality is not panic, is not anxiety, is not a fervent and frenzied busyness to try to fix it. We hear tonight, we hear at all times the truth that it is those who wait on the Lord whose strength is renewed. It is those who can stand in the darkness, in the brokenness, in the face of death, and hold on to nothing else than the hope of the Lord, who find peace. So as we may feel that this last year has been a bad one, that so much has broken, so much has fallen apart, so much is not as we wanted it to be, or as we thought that it should be, as our minds reel at the reality that once again we are come to another Lent, with faces missing, with a deeper assurance that life is not what we thought it was going to be. We are called not to ignore, not to deny, not to argue with that realization. We are called to stand in that truth and to pray, to ask the Lord for strength to endure the day, to ask Him for peace that passes understanding, to ask Him for hope and for love as we endure, and to ask Him as we now stand in darkness to bring us once again to the light of His glorious resurrection. And in the course of this, we have one another as companions, as support, as fellow travelers, and as intercessors, praying for one another. And therefore, we begin the fast not only thinking about these truths, but making real our fellowship, our camaraderie, not by making promises to each other, not by pretending that everything is well, but by confessing that all is not well, that we have sinned against God and against one another, and that it is good and necessary to ask forgiveness of the people who are here and of those who are not here. Therefore, we do this rite of forgiveness in which we prostrate one to another and we say, I forgive me a sinner. And it is enough to simply say this to one another. If you wish, you may also say, may God forgive us both. It's not necessary. It is kind of assumed. We stand here, all of us, seeking the forgiveness of the Lord for ourselves and for one another. So again, we make the prostration one to another. I forgive me a sinner. And we may add, may God forgive us both. So please come up. I think you remember from other years. Let us ask one another's prayers, one another's forgiveness, and from the Lord, grace and strength for what comes.